What's up, guys? Toad back with you again. If you watched Tower Game last night, I apologize. I am completely retarded. Let's get into talking about today's slate. We have a short baseball card today. I do have one baseball play, which may or may not concern me. I don't know. It just seems like a motivational disparity, and I'm just doing it, and whatever. And we have two really bad football games today. I don't know why the people who are in control of these schedules are doing this to us, but you got the Thursday night NFL game and the one isolated FBS college football game are both games in which you have a road favorite, and both games just look like they're going to be really ugly. I will talk about them briefly. We'll talk about baseball. Of course, my Boston Red Sox are now officially eliminated. They're not playing tonight, so there's no Dream Crusher to play against the Red Sox tonight because they're not playing. But I guess we could play against them tomorrow because I think they finish the season against Tampa tomorrow. Oh, my God. There are only a few games that actually have any real meaning in baseball at this point tonight. One is San Diego Dodgers, maybe. Does this game really have that much meaning, though? I mean, I think the Dodgers have not officially clinched the division because there are 4 games left, I think, for each of these teams, I think. And they have one more series left after this, and the Dodgers are up 3 in the NL West. Oh, yeah, there's still a chance for San Diego to win the NL West, right? Yeah, no, I don't think so. But this is Joe Musgrove against Walker Buehler in this one. The Dodgers are down from -128 to -121. San Diego public. Looks like the market read is on the San Diego side here. 68% of the tickets, 88% of the cash. Dodgers were able to win last night, I believe, even though it was Dylan Cease pitching for San Diego. I don't think I buy this market movement, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, this matchup, Joe Musgrove is definitely the pitcher who's in the better form, and you are getting San Diego as an underdog, and they may be a little bit more motivated because the Dodgers are probably thinking, hey, we've won the division at this point, but then again, San Diego might be thinking, we can't win the division at this point, but they still just might be a little bit extra motivated just because they're playing the Dodgers, and they've played, second fiddle to the Dodgers for a while, pretty much. But Joe Musgrove, yeah, he is the better pitcher overall. He has the better season stats, better recent stats as well, I believe. Walker Buehler has really been struggling this season. But looking at the matchups, Joe Musgrove actually has bad numbers against the Dodgers. They hit like over 300 off of him, so I don't know if I would actually want to do anything with him in this game. Let me see. Yeah, they hit 307 off him and 189 at bats, 842 OPS. So Dodgers get to Musgrove. Walker Buehler, granted, most of this is back when he was a better pitcher prior to 2022. He has really been bad this season, so most of these stats are prior to that, but he actually has good numbers against San Diego. But you'd have to ignore the fact that he's not good this season. He has 157 at bats worth against San Diego hitters. It's held him to a 185 average and 546 OPS. So matchup-specific stats don't look as good for the Dodgers, for San Diego in this one. But as far as the way these pitchers have been pitching recently, it doesn't look good for the Dodgers. And, I mean, that's one of the bigger games on the board. Baltimore, New York, I guess, is kind of a big game just because it's AL East. But if the Yankees haven't actually officially clinched the division yet, I mean, they might as well have. Baltimore's going to be a wild card. The Yankees, they're public, 64% of the tickets. So the line has gone down on the Yankees from -144 to -143. 78% of the cash actually on the Baltimore side. So the market indicators are indicating on the side of Baltimore, and why not, I guess? I mean, Baltimore probably has the better pitcher, at least in the starting pitching matchup, with Corbin Burns, who is their ace, one of the better pitchers in baseball, and he has good career numbers against the New York Yankees. So I guess it kind of makes sense to lean that way. But Garrett Cole is not a bad pitcher either. And he's had some struggles with the Yankees, but he's been getting better as of late. Again, Corbin Burns does have really good numbers against the Yankees in his career, in 76 at-bats, a 145 batting average against them, and 411 OPS. So he has ace-like stuff and ace-like numbers in his history against the Yankees. Garrett Cole, he's turned a season around that wasn't looking that good for a while, but he's been pitching a lot better recently, getting that ERA and WHIP both down into very respectable ranges, more than respectable. And against the Orioles, his numbers aren't as good as Burns are against the Yankees, but his numbers are decent in 166 at-bats against the Orioles, 253 batting average, and 713 OPS. So both pitchers have done, at the very least, okay against these opposing hitters. Burns does have the better numbers than Cole does against these opposing hitters, though. So the market read in this one, I agree with it, and I think it makes sense on the Baltimore side, other than the fact that is Baltimore going to lack any sort of motivation because they know they're going to get a wild card at this point. But then again, the Yankees could lack motivation as well, thinking that, well, we have the division wrapped up basically at this point. So kind of a similar scenario to the San Diego Dodgers one, which is interesting. And then you got Kansas City, Washington. I do lean to Kansas City in this one, but again, they're such a heavy public road favorite. I can't do this. I mean, they're the only team that has anything to play for here. They're still fighting for a wild card spot. So I believe the wild card situation right now is Baltimore is atop the wild card right now. 3 teams are going to get in. I'm pretty sure all the bottom 2 have to play off for the final wild card, if I remember correctly. I think that's how the expanded MLB playoff works now. I don't even know, but I think Kansas City is tied with Detroit right now in that second spot, and then Minnesota is slightly behind that, and they are the one team out right now. Actually, Seattle, I think, is not eliminated yet either. So Minnesota and Seattle are both out of the wild card positions right now, not officially eliminated yet. Red Sox and Tampa are both officially eliminated, and I will talk about Tampa in a second as well. So Kansas City, the only team with any sort of motivation in this game, really. They're up or down, actually, from minus 175 to minus 168. So the line has actually dropped on them. They are public with 94% of the tickets. I don't know if this 100% of the cash is at all accurate. I think probably the market is indicating against Kansas City, to be honest, just thinking that just because of the motivational disparity, everybody knows Kansas City needs to win. Perhaps the pressure is going to be on them a little bit, and this price is a little bit high to be laying as a road favorite with Kansas City, but again, like I said, they are still the only team that has motivation here, and I do think there is a pretty large pitching discrepancy in this game. Washington has been pretty bad in this series. They haven't scored any runs in this series. Kansas City's only scored 4 runs in the whole series, and they've won both games because they've pitched 2 shutouts against this Washington team that just does not have a good offense, does not have a lot going for it. Kansas City went on this real bad slide, losing like 8 games in a row, and now they've finally been able to break that losing streak and put that losing momentum behind. Hey, Washington is the cure for what ails you, man. Michael Wacha is pitching for Kansas City. He's putting together a decent season for sure. 3.28 ERA, 1.19 whip. He's been decent recently, too. Not going really deep into some of these games, but not allowing a whole lot of runs either. The 1.99 ERA this month, 23-6 strikeout walk ratio. Good stats recently. And against Washington, they actually don't even have that much of a track record against him. You can probably throw Patrick Corbin out, who not only is a pitcher, but is his opponent in this game. And Wacha, I guess, has apparently struck him out and walked him and allowed an RBI against him at one point. I guess he walked in a run. Maybe he walked Corbin with the bases loaded at some point in their careers. I don't know. But if you throw that out, I mean, you're still looking at Washington is only 0 for 4 off of him in their careers. Joey Gallo, the better hitter here, 0 for 3, but he has walked against him twice. So if you throw out Patrick Corbin, he's got a 2-2 strikeout walk ratio against them. Very small sample size. So I don't know if there's that much to take away from that, other than the fact that most of Washington's hitters, who aren't really that good anyway, haven't even faced Wacha before somehow in their careers. So Wacha could have a little bit of an extra edge because of that, because he's actually, even though he's been around forever and there is at least game film on him, he's actually not familiar to Washington's hitters, which is crazy to think about. Patrick Corbin on the other side, I make fun of him all the time. He's one of the worst pitchers in baseball. 5.58 ERA, 1.51 whip. That's all bad. Recent stats also not good, with a 6.14 ERA this month, even though 23-5 strikeout walk ratio doesn't look that bad, but he's just been getting hammered, allowing 4 home runs, although 3 of them in one game against Pittsburgh, 28 hits. I mean, he has not been pitching well yet again recently. And against Kansas City's hitters in a 106 at-bat sample size, Kansas City hits 321 off him with a 941 OPS. So Kansas City does do a lot of damage against them. So I guess there is some reasoning behind Kansas City being a heavy road favorite, but I still think the price is a bit high to be laying there, so I'll stay off of that one as well. I do like the under in Miami, Minnesota, which is Valente Belloso against David Festa, two really young pitchers. We do see some market indicators on the under. The price, the total is just sitting at 8.5, pretty much juiced to the over, maybe a slight tick downward. 91% of the tickets are on the over, even though Miami is a team that can't hit that well, and 74% of the cash on the under. I like the under in this one, but it's almost entirely because both of these starting pitchers have never been seen before by these opposing hitters. They're both rookies, so the unfamiliarity aspect there would lead you to a play on the under, with the case being that both starting pitchers just are unfamiliar to the opposing hitter. So when the opposing hitters are unfamiliar to an opposing pitcher, the pitcher tends to have a little bit of an edge because the opposing hitters don't know what that pitcher is going to really throw at them. But both of these pitchers have had their struggles this year too, mostly with walks. Both pitchers have just walked too many guys. Festa, I think, may have allowed too many hits too. I don't know. I would have to go back and look, but these pitchers have been okay, but definitely not dominant, so it's not really one that I want to actually get involved in. And the same can kind of go for Texas, Oakland. This is another situation where both starting pitchers are unfamiliar to the opposing hitter, so both opposing lineups could struggle against these opposing hitters. I like this under actually a little bit more. We've seen this one go down from 8.5 juice to the under to 8 juice to the over, so a slight tick downward. 53% of tickets on the under, 56% of cash on the under. So a little bit of a market indicator on the under as well there. This has Kumar Rocker, and out of these four pitchers, I do think Rocker has the best stuff out of the four. He's the guy I've talked about. I've been involved in both of his first two games. I won on Texas in his debut, which was close, and I did win on the under in the other game that he pitched, but it was because it was a good starting pitching matchup in both directions in that one. Rocker, he's been good, not allowing many runs at all in his first two starts, but he hasn't gone deep into those starts, so they seem to be kind of not totally unleashing him yet. They're keeping him kind of on a pitch count a little bit there, on an innings count maybe. I don't think he's made 5 innings, or maybe he's barely made 5 innings in one of his two starts and didn't make 5 in the other one, whatever it was. But he's also walked too many guys in his two starts. I think he has a bunch of walks as opposed to the amount of runs and hits that he's allowed. He's putting too many men on base via the walk. He throws really hard, but he is wild. But he has good stuff, and Oakland has never seen him before. So Rocker, I do think, has an edge in that regard. And then on the other side, JT Ginn pitching for Oakland. He's strung together some decent recent starts, too, including his most recent start against the Yankees. He actually held them to like 1 run in 5 innings or something like that. So Ginn has actually been pretty decent recently, too, not allowing a whole lot of runs. He's unfamiliar to the opposing lineup as well because he's a young guy. I'm not sure if he's a rookie or what, but I don't think he's been seen before by the opposing hitters either. So the starting pitching matchup has a little bit of an edge in both directions in that one, too. So I lean to the under. Scoreboard, what's up, man? You're betting on props with Witt Jr. for a hit today? Yeah, I mean, I just looked at those stats. I think he's 3 for 3 in his career against Patrick Corbin here, so probably not a bad way to go is looking at some player props here. Witt, yeah, 3 for 3 with a home run and a double in his career against Patrick Corbin, so he has dominated Corbin, although it's a very small sample size to be looking at there. John Rocker came out of retirement. Yeah, I wish. That would be awesome. I don't know where that guy is now, but Kumar Rocker, I mean, he's Indian, but I hope that he's making similar statements to John Rocker. I hope he's out there just bashing the subway system of New York City and bashing the fact that there are all these immigrants infiltrating the subway system and whatever, and that he doesn't want to deal with it, even though he is also himself an immigrant. He's one of the less violent ones, right? Because he's Indian, so he's more of just a guy who's going to take a dump in the streets or whatever. As far as playing Witt to get a hit, I've talked about baseball props a little bit, and I think you get the best edge. I think home run props, I think, are a total no-go. You never get good enough odds on home run props because everybody likes to play the home run props. They want to see these guys hit home runs. So, like, the best hitters in baseball are still only going to hit home runs. Like, the best home run hitters are still only going to hit them, like, 1 out of every, like, 12, 13 at-bats or whatever. Maybe if that, because this isn't the steroid era anymore. And you don't get anywhere near as good enough odds on that. Then you can also play, like, total base props or something like that, which the problem with total base props is that if your guy draws a walk, it doesn't add to your total bases at all. So it's basically like getting an out. So that sucks. So the walk is wasted. So I hear Tokyo Brandon on Wager Talk. He talks about this a lot. He's a baseball handicapper. He's really good at multiple different sports, but baseball is really his thing. He's like a former baseball scout. I think he lives in Japan now, and he's like in tune to like the Japanese leagues and stuff too. But he does a lot of Major League Baseball, and his recommendation on the baseball props, if you find a guy who you think is going to have a good matchup against his opposing hitter, whatever, against his opposing pitcher. I mean, you want to play that hitter to have a really good game. You play the hits plus runs plus RBIs prop is the way to actually do it, because when they walk, it can actually still add to your prop because there's still a chance that they score a run on that because they get on base and they can get knocked in. So that's what he recommends in that one, that you play hits plus runs plus RBIs over whatever the total that they're giving you is in that prop there. So that's the way he recommends playing it. And we'll talk about my actual play in Major League Baseball here before I have to talk about these horrible football games before I get out of here. I'm going to play the Detroit Tigers, even though you are laying a price in this one too, and they do need to win this game. So the pressure is kind of on Detroit, but I think this matchup is lopsided in favor of Detroit here, possibly more so than the Kansas City one is. And Detroit's laying a cheaper price, and they're at home. So I like this one. I'm going to do a split bet on this one, laying the Detroit run line minus 1.5 runs at plus 136. Half the bet on that and half the bet on the money line at minus 152. That's the way I'm looking at this. I also wouldn't mind if you just laid the minus 1 run line on Detroit. I talk about this a lot when you play an MLB favorite like this that's up in like the minus 150, 160 money line range. I think the better option is to either lay the minus 1 run line because you knock that price down. If they win by 1 exactly, you push the bet, which isn't like the worst thing. But I like it better actually splitting the bet half and half on the minus 1.5 run line and the money line, because that way if they win by 1, you actually still win a slight amount because you're paying more on the money line part of it than on the run line part of it. So if the money line part of it wins and the run line part of it doesn't win, and you split exactly half on each, you still pretty much make money on that. If you're betting each one to win like the same amount, to win half of your unit size there. We're not talking about unit size here. My unit size is definitely not large. We'll leave it at that. But that's the way I like to do it. So, and plus, when you're shopping around, you have a bunch of books to work with. It works out better if you split the bet because you can find the best number on each side of the bet. And very often, it might be at different books. So you can play the run line at one book and you can play the money line at another book. Look at the market here. I mean, Detroit's public, which worries me a little bit, but it looks like they have more of the cash than the tickets on. I mean, everybody's going to come in on Detroit. They've been the much hotter team. They're playing against Tampa here, which the public's not going to want to be on Tampa. 82% of the tickets on Detroit, but 95% of the cash, and they are looking like they're just sitting at minus 156 here as the consensus money line number here. But there are situations in baseball where I will agree with the public. I mean, you don't want to necessarily just blindly fade the public in all situations. I think this situation is good to play Detroit in this one. There's a big motivational disparity here, man. I think Tampa, along with my Red Sox, I think got officially eliminated last night with a loss to this Detroit team. Detroit's on the verge of sweeping Tampa, but Tampa just has not been showing up in this series. They've only scored 1 run in each game, so almost as bad as Washington has been doing against Kansas City there. So does that mean Tampa's going to have any sort of motivation here to try to avoid the sweep? Just avoid getting embarrassed? I'm not so sure about that, man, because now that they're officially eliminated, they could be in the Dream Crusher scenario and just not have that much of a reason to show up. Like, this isn't really a rivalry game for them. Like, it's not a division game. I don't know that they're going to show up and want to play spoiler here against a team that they don't have that, like, real hatred towards in Detroit, even though, yes, Detroit has beaten them twice in a row here. But I also think the pitching matchup is not good for Tampa Bay, even though if you look at yesterday, Detroit used more of their starting pitchers, or more of their relief pitchers yesterday, because Montero pitched for Detroit, and they did have to use 5 pitchers out of their bullpen, but it concerns me a little bit less just because I think Detroit might have the slightly better of the 2 bullpens, and with the bullpen call-ups here, the expanded bullpens, I don't think the fact they use 5 relief pitchers is that much of an issue coming into this game, whereas Tampa only used 3 of their relievers yesterday. I still don't think it's that much of an issue because of the call-ups and because I expect Tampa to be the first of these 2 teams to have to go to the bullpen in this game. I think this is a starting pitching mismatch with Tyler Alexander. The way that his stash looks, he should be pitching way better than he does. That stash, man, you want to bet on this guy because of the stash, but then you see his numbers like, man, these are not stash-worthy numbers here. 5.35 ERA, 1.27 whip, no thank you. He hasn't been pitching very well recently either. You have to go back to this Arizona start to find a start of his where he went more than 5 innings in a game. And if you throw that one out, you have to go all the way back to this Toronto start on May 17th. Every start after that one, he's gone 5 or fewer innings, and in almost all of them, he's gone fewer than 5 innings. So he is not going deep into these games. He's allowing too many runs for the amount of innings that he's pitching. Strikeout walk numbers haven't been that great. He's posting ERAs that are in like the high 4s, 4.67 this month, 11.3 strikeout walk ratio. Nothing to really like about this. 3 home runs allowed isn't good either. So he hasn't been that great. And up against Detroit, we have a small sample size, though, although most of their hitters, a lot of their hitters have at least seen him like once. But in a 12 at-bat sample size, there's not much you can really take away from the fact that he's held them to a 250 average and 500 OPS. I don't know what to really gather from that, but Alexander is clearly the worst of these 2 pitchers here, man. And I think he might be out of the game early enough that we're going to get to Tampa Bay's bullpen before we get to Detroit's bullpen, which is why it makes sense to play full game here, other than the fact that Detroit also is motivated because they're still very much in the wild card race here and need to win this game, which does mean the pressure is on, and they are having to win by a little bit of a margin here, but in baseball, I'm less concerned about it. In these other sports where they really have to like win by a large margin, I get more concerned about it. When you only have to win by really 1 run in this game to make it like worth betting, get like at least a slight win out of it. I mean, that is what Detroit's motivated to do. They're motivated to win the game. So to hit the run line, they just have to win by 1 additional run there. So it's not as bad. Reese Olson is pitching for Detroit. He is the way better of these 2 pitchers. 3.49 ERA, 1.19 whip. He just came back off of the DL a couple starts ago. He missed almost 2 months. He's had a rocky go of it since he's come back. They've been holding him to a pitch count. Didn't pitch well against Kansas City, even though they actually won the game. He allowed 4 runs, though, so that wasn't good. But he pitched a little bit better, and these are both on the road. At Baltimore in his next start, he went 3 innings, only allowing 1 earned run, so maybe they're ramping him up a little bit. I actually expect him to go deeper into this game. I think they're starting to let him go a little bit more. They're just working him back from that injury. I'm not entirely sure, but I expect that they're going to let him pitch a little bit more, even though he's a young guy. He hasn't made that many starts this season or thrown that many innings, even though he is over 100 now. I'm not too worried about that. I think they're going to let him go a little bit deeper, but even if they don't, I think Detroit's bullpen is probably the better of the 2. But he looks to be regaining his composure, getting back into the swing of things here, and over his last 5 starts, Detroit has actually won every single one of those starts. So that actually looks pretty good as well to me. Even the shortened starts that he's had, they've won those games, even though they've been close. But he is the better overall pitcher. And against Tampa's weak offense, many of them have not even seen him before. We only have a 10 at-bat sample size, and he's held them to a 200 average, but an 833 OPS because he's allowed 1 home run to Siri. Maybe he asked Siri, please hit a home run off of me. Or maybe Siri mistook what he said. If he said, please don't hit a home run off of me, Siri got it wrong and hit a home run off of him. I don't know. Whatever the case is, he has a really limited sample size against them. So Tampa's hitters have not really seen much of him before. Detroit obviously has the better of these 2 offenses, and I think they have the better starting pitcher of these 2 still, even though Olson's working his way back, and they have, I think, the better of these 2 bullpens, even though they're a little bit less rested. So I actually do like the Detroit side here. That's my one play here. Detroit Tigers, split bet on the run line and money line. Let's hope I don't lose it. Oh, I haven't. Oh, my apologies, man. I haven't been screen sharing this whole time. Man, I did that the other day. I'm just totally out of it. My apologies. Well, you'll see it for my baseball play at least, but you've seen what I was talking about as far as the market. Market worrying me a little bit in that Detroit game, but they're the team that has the motivation, man. Let's talk about these football games before I get out of here. There's not a whole lot to say. We have two ugly games with two road favorites here, and this just doesn't look good, and they both have kind of low totals, especially the college game. Army at Temple. Who is going to want to watch this game, man? I mean, Temple, they're one of the worst teams in FBS football, man. I'm sorry. Army is up from -11 to -13 on the road. Tickets evenly split 50-50 because Temple finally won a game last week, and I guess the public are not believers in Army or in the triple option or whatever it is. But Temple has just been so bad. 62% of the tickets on Army, so the market actually is indicating on the Army side fairly significantly and driven the line up a little bit, and more of the cash is on them. The total has gone up from 45.5 to 46.5, juice to the under. 70% of the tickets on the over, 57% of the cash on the under, though. I do actually lean to the under in this one. It looks like there is a serious cash discrepancy on the under. I think the under might be the better way to go here in this one. As far as the under is concerned in this one, you got Army. Army runs a triple option offense. We all know this, but Temple, they're one of the few teams that actually faces the triple option fairly often. They just faced the triple option a few weeks ago when they faced Navy, even though Navy beat them. Temple, they are at least used to facing the triple option, so they kind of know how to defend it. And they beat Navy last year, I think. So they face the triple option more often than most teams do. So I actually don't think that Army has as much of an advantage on the offense as they would facing a team that never faces the triple option. That and Temple's getting a lot of points at home in a game that has a low total. And Temple's finally coming off a win. They finally won, although I think it was against Utah State, who really sucks, so that's not really that impressive of a win, but it is still a win nonetheless, so that kind of breaks that losing momentum for Temple. So Temple does maybe have a few edges there as far as the situation is concerned. Army, I mean, they're 3-0, but their wins are not against any sort of impressive teams, really. This is not a gauntlet of a schedule so far, but yet again, Temple is also not a very good team at all. So Army's had a very weak schedule so far, and they did have a bye in there, I think, between the FAU and Rice games, maybe. So Army may be the slightly more rested team here because they had a bye 2 weeks ago or whatever. But again, even though the line is indicating on the Army side, and I may still lean that way on the side just because I would lean with the market movement if I think that there are conflicting indicators otherwise. But I think the under is the better way to go because you have a Temple offense that really struggles. The only game where they really did anything was against that Utah State team, was really not very good. Temple's offense is not a very capable offense. And then Army, like I said, their offense might be held in check to some extent just because Temple is familiar with defending against the triple option. So that could lend itself towards more of an under type of game. That plus Army first offense, if their rushing attack is held down by the defense by any means whatsoever, that could mean that the game is going to wind up being a little bit of a slower paced game and fall into that under category as well. When you're a run heavy team, that tends to help the game actually be a little bit lower scoring in a lot of cases, and it actually makes it more difficult for you to cover a large favorite number on the road like this. So that's why I don't want to play the Army side. I would lean to the under in this one over playing the side here, but I don't want to play either. And then Cowboys-Giants is the NFL game we're getting. This is just ugly, man. Come on. Both of these teams have been playing ugly. The Cowboys, the look ahead in this game was actually -7 on the Cowboys, and because of just last week's results, just because the Giants finally won a game against the Cleveland Browns, which why does that even matter at all? And because the Cowboys lost to a pretty good Ravens team, even though the Ravens were 0-2 coming into that game. The Ravens haven't faced a very easy schedule so far, and the Ravens, I think they're still a pretty good team, so I don't know why the line moved that significantly under that key number 7 just based off of 1 week's results in that case, because Dallas made a nice comeback in that game at the very least, even though Baltimore pretty much had their way with them for most of that game. The Cowboys made a valiant effort to come back in that game at the very least. So that game looks like it was fairly close, whereas the Giants beating the Browns, who don't look like they're actually that good, I don't understand why the line would move that much just off of that. So this actually might be an overreaction to what we saw in the look ahead the week prior. This line down to 6 right now. With the Cowboys public, of course, the public's only going to come in on the Dallas side in this one. The public does not have any faith in the Giants, and why would you? They still know that the Giants are one of the worst teams in football, and the Cowboys are still at the very least not a horrible team, I don't think. 75% of the cash on the Cowboys, so actually more of the cash coming in on the side of the Cowboys. And there are some reasons besides the fact that there might actually be line value on the Cowboys here, shockingly, based on the fact that the look ahead was 7 here, and now it's 6. But on the other side, the books know that the public is going to come in on the side of the Cowboys. So why are the books letting you play the Cowboys at under a touchdown? It almost looks too easy. It almost looks too inviting to come in and play the Cowboys at a number under a touchdown. So I don't want to play the side in this one either. But because the look ahead was 7, even though it does look too easy to take the Cowboys, it looks like there might even actually be a little bit of value on that side, as ridiculous as that sounds. The reason for that, not just in the fact that the look ahead was actually higher than this, the 7, but the fact that the Cowboys have just dominated this series recently, man. Dak Prescott, his Cowboys teams have won 10 straight games against the Giants, I'm pretty sure, and I think they've covered probably more than half of those games. Playing the games on the road at the Giants, I think they've still won by an average of like 19 points per game over the last 5 games or something like that. So that's looking back over the last 5 years. The Giants have been really bad against the Cowboys, haven't been able to beat them. Although I think they have covered in some of them. They've kept closer than others, and this is kind of a larger line, and it is at home for the Giants, at the very least. But Giants have not done well against the Cowboys whatsoever. Granted, Daniel Jones wasn't playing in every single one of those games. As we remember, I think Tommy DeVito might have played in both games that the Giants played against the Cowboys last year, and that was just a complete disaster there. I think Daniel Jones might have been out for both. Or no, maybe it was just one game. I think Daniel Jones might have played in the first of the 2 games because it was the opening week, maybe, if I remember correctly. And then DeVito was the quarterback in the second of the 2 games, which was a disaster. He was just thinking about his mother's chicken parm too much. But the Giants, not only did they not do well against the Cowboys, but Daniel Jones's Giants teams also have done very poorly in primetime games and very poorly on Thursday night games. So the history is not on the Giants' side in this matchup, man. But just because the Cowboys are a public road favorite like this, and they are the Cowboys, and it almost looks too easy, you're not going to catch me laying the points with the Cowboys either. The total, I think, might be the better way to look at this. The Giants are up from 43.5 to 45. 78% of the tickets and 82% of the cash on the over. I don't know what you can take away from that other than the fact that I actually think that the line is just moving just because it's a primetime game and the public is actually paying attention to this game and coming in playing the over here. I actually lean against the public here. I actually lean to the under in this one because you have a Giants offense that I don't think is that capable, even though Daniel Jones actually wasn't that bad in the last 2 games. He was actually only bad in the opening game against the Vikings, but it looks like the Vikings' defense is actually pretty good. So Daniel Jones did better against the weaker defenses against Washington, even though they didn't put up numbers on the scoreboard. He actually didn't have a bad game. And then last week, the Cleveland Browns' defense is actually not that bad, so he actually put up a decent showing against them as well, and actually the Giants won that game against the Browns. So whatever you may think of that, the Browns defense I don't think is that bad. So I don't know, maybe Jones isn't that bad, but the Giants rushing attack is nowhere to be seen. No more Saquon Barkley, and the Giants rushing attack is terrible, but the Cowboys rushing attack is also bad. So I think you're going to have 2 one-dimensional offenses in this game that really all they can do is pass. But the Giants offense is just pretty miserable, honestly, overall. Even though Jones hasn't been as bad the last 2 weeks, he's still not very good. So this Giants offense is still pretty weak. And the Cowboys defense, even though I think they're not that great, that's kind of like weakness on weakness there. So I don't think it's going to help the Giants that much offensively. Facing this weak defense, I still think their offense might be held down enough for this to go under. And the Cowboys can't run either. I mean, they have, Zeke is back as their primary rusher. I mean, are you kidding me? No more Tony Pollard there. That's bad. The Cowboys have no rushing attack either. So I don't think the Cowboys really have the means to take advantage of the Giants' defense, actually, because the Giants' defensive strength, if there is one, is actually the passing defense is better than their rushing defense. Their rushing defense is bad, but the Cowboys don't really have the weapons to take advantage of that. So this looks like it could be kind of an ugly, maybe lower-scoring game here, although if it is, that does kind of lend itself towards the underdog having an easier opportunity to cover. I don't know. This is just a hard one to read, man. And then I always look at common opponents when there are only a few games that each team has played so far. And there is one common opponent between these two teams. The Cowboys absolutely annihilated Cleveland in week 1 on the road. The Giants also beat Cleveland on the road, and it was a closer game and went in and beat them last week. So the public is going to probably look at that and also lean to the Cowboys side because of that, because the Cowboys blasted Cleveland more easily than the Giants did, but both of these teams did beat Cleveland. So maybe Cleveland's just not really as good as we thought that they may be coming into the season. But for Cleveland, I think their defense still is good. I think it's more that their offense just can't get it together at all. So I don't know that there's that much to take away from that either. That's my breakdown of today's card, man. I mean, these football games are just ugly, and I want nothing to do with them. My one play, I'm a little bit concerned about it, the fact that I'm rolling with the public in this one, but Detroit Tigers, they have the motivation in this game. They should have the pitching edge in this game and the offensive edge and hopefully the bullpen edge as well, even though the bullpen's a little bit less rested. Split play in the Detroit Tigers at -1.5 plus 136 run line, and the other half in on the -152 money line. That's going to do it for me, man. Have a good Thursday, and we'll continue to be back again. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, guys, and follow the Tower Gang podcast, which I ruined last night when I accidentally ended the stream just by jumping on because I wanted to say hello. At least it was almost about to wrap up, but man, that was so retarded, so stupid. I apologize, man. Hopefully there was a good post show last night. Hopefully Kaufman stuck around for that. Man, that sucked. I apologize, but follow the Tower Gang podcast, man. I'm sure it was another really good episode last night. Even though it was without me and half without Cole. Tower Gang Tone on Twitter for me. Tower Gang Podcast. You can find us everywhere. And subscribe to the Patreon. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. And you get that bonus content for disrupted episodes. When I come in and accidentally end the stream, you get more content because you get to go over to the post show, to the Patreon, and get the Patreon post show, and you get to see that too, and the pre-show. Peace out, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out.